What is going on, everybody? It's Alex coming back here with another video, and today we are having RJ Gillen on the show. So I just want to do this really quickly before we actually get to the real intro. This will be a two-part series. It ended up being about an hour long, and there have been some technical difficulties, but that'll only be seen in part two. So I really do appreciate you guys doing everything for me. And we will probably not have an outro on this video, but you guys will obviously see when that happens. So again, appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the show. What is going on, everybody? It's Alex coming back here with another video, and today we have the blessing of being able to be interviewing the 49ers head scout, RJ Gillen. RJ, welcome to the channel. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and yeah, just thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alex. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to speaking with you and just kind of talking some ball. So my name is RJ Gillen. I'm a pro personnel scout for the 49ers. I'm in my sixth season. So kind of seen it all at the 49ers, from coaching changes, front office changes, picking second in the draft to second in the last in the draft, and making the Super Bowl. So been through all the ups and downs with the team. The only team I've been with. So, but even though it's the only team, I've still, like I mentioned, been able to see a lot of different sides of the industry just through all the different changes that we've gone through as an organization. But seems like we're on the right track now. We just need to stay healthy.
Yeah, and obviously injuries have been a huge problem for the 49ers, as we could tell by Jimmy G unfortunately going down almost every year. But of course, when he's healthy, we see what happens when your team is just able to play at its maximum capacity. Obviously, being able to get Nick Bosa at 2 when all of a sudden your team is already stacked for a Super Bowl is probably a nice addition.
Yeah. He definitely made an impact on that defense last year, and it hurt to lose him this year.
Oh, yeah. So you talked about how the 49ers have been your only team that you've worked for. So I just wanted to ask the question, why the 49ers for one? And also, if you weren't going to work for the 49ers, who else would you go for?
So why the 49ers? I interviewed with several different teams when I was going through that process, and the 49ers were the first team to offer me a full-time position. And at the time, it seemed like a great organization, and I was excited to finally, be able to break into the industry. So, short answer is why the 49ers. It was my first opportunity. So I just kind of jumped in the deep end and took it. I don't think I have a dream organization, to be honest with you. I kind of know how this industry works, and I'm open-minded, and would be happy to go anywhere with any team, just kind of wherever the career path took me. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. The Titans came to Tennessee later. Mm-hmm. So I never really had a true team that I was a big fan of growing up. Okay. So kind of my loyalties weren't with one team. I enjoyed watching different players. I had a bunch of different players that I'd follow and watch. So kind of think that from that beginning, I've just kind of always been open-minded.
Okay. Well, it's rolling off of that. Who is your favorite player of all time and why?
Ooh, favorite player of all time.
Oh, yeah. A tough question.
No, that is a tough question.
You can throw out a couple names. It's perfectly fine.
Growing up, it was definitely Reggie Bush. I wore number 5 in high school because of Reggie. Just loved the way he played, his dynamic ability, and just in my opinion, from my experience, the era that I lived in was that first truly dynamic playmaker, game changer. Just get the ball in his hands and watch what he can do with it. Kind of seems like he was ahead of his time when he got to the NFL. I think today's offense and game would be a lot better, suited for him, kind of like, Kamara, Christian McCaffrey type.
Yep.
But growing up, he was definitely the guy. And then Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, when they were really rolling and made their Super Bowl run, their first Super Bowl run, that defense was unbelievable, and they were, two cornerstones. And I played free safety in high school, and so kind of Ed Reed was kind of who I would want to model my game after. Just a ball hawk, just real instinctive, and quarterbacks always had to find him.
Yeah, well, those players are okay, I guess. Ed Reed kind of being one of the best safeties, if not the best of all time. Well, that is interesting. I mean, for me, mine was Lawrence Taylor and Sean Taylor. Those two guys, like,
yeah,
they were the epitome of like my dad would just tell me about like Walter Payton as well. Earl Campbell, when I watched him just truck right through the Rams player, just helmet right into the chest.
Yep.
That solidified just my love for football right there. So
yeah. No, Sean Taylor's a great one. He's another one that I would mention on the top of my list. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, he put the word power in hit power. Like he was pretty much a faster Cam Chancellor in my eyes before he ever. It's just
no doubt. Yeah.
Scary. Just scary, Sam. It's too bad that he's gone, but it happens. Okay, so switching to more of the idea of scouting. Obviously, you guys have a large group of personnel. You're probably not just the only single scout in the entire office, right?
No.
Yeah, you probably have a big team. So how do you guys make a final decision? Because I know for me, I have a bunch of scout buddies, and like I'm pretty low on Trey Lance right now. It's an initial opinion, but like a lot of them are thinking like, oh, he could be the best in the draft type of stuff. How do you guys like deal with that? And maybe is there like a hierarchy where like, oh, well, if RJ says this, then he kind of trumps all these other guys, and then that should leave us to a better idea for it.
Yeah. So kind of to attack that question, first of all, difference in opinions is obviously really good. Promotes healthy discussion. Eliminates bias, that kind of thing. Just quick topic on that. When I did an internship with the San Antonio Spurs, and we were in free agency meetings, draft meetings, and their executives to their scouts along these kind of lines is, if you guys had the same opinion as me or just agreed with everything I said, there'd be no reason to employ you. So, front offices, they kind of want that difference of opinion so you can have those healthy conversations, work those out, kind of makes people, stand up for what they truly believe in, provide tangible examples, kind of makes people prove it than just kind of taking their word at it. Yeah. For the 49ers and most NFL teams, there is a type of hierarchy. Okay. You have your scouts, whether it's the college side or the pro side. Then you have your directors, you have your executives and VPs, and then it finally gets to the GM. And in some teams, the head coach will have a say also. So at the end of the day, the decision or where you place a player on the board kind of does go through a hierarchy. Okay. But in that same sense, the GM or whoever has the final say kind of has the final say. But everyone that I've been around does a real good job of listening to their scouts and, kind of respecting their opinion and, kind of trying to find that happy medium if there is a big disagreement. Okay.
So rolling off that like Trey Lance idea of like obviously the difference of opinions, in your own personal opinion, not trying to, I'm going to beat around the bush, but not try to get too much of an answer out of you. Who do you like, what type of quarterback fits the 49ers dream offense best, do you think? More of like a stationary quarterback or a mobile, or maybe a hybrid, similar to like a Kyle Trask who can kind of run, but not really like an athlete?
Yeah. In my opinion, it would be that hybrid type player. So a lot of our offense, kind of the West Coast system, play action type stuff, it's a lot of rhythm and timing. So you do need that kind of pocket passer type that can, sit in the pocket, play in what we call a phone booth. So a confined space, be able to get creative with his arm angles, have that quick release, throw from multiple platforms, that type of stuff. In the same breath, though, defenses are getting better and defenses are going to win some reps. So you need a quarterback that can go off script and, make plays happen with his legs. But our specific offensive system for the 49ers, we don't need that true athlete. Yeah. We kind of want that pocket passer that can also do a little something with his legs.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously every single offense is starting to evolve into their own unique schemes. Obviously, you see the Bills are they're evolving each year. Where you can see like last year they're extremely run heavy. This year, Josh Allen fixes his mechanics, and then you see what he's doing. That dude is pretty special.
There's only like 3 called runs in last night's game.
Yeah, it was just like
the Bills.
That's not the Bills, but now it is.
Right. Now it is.
I was just seeing maybe if there was a vision for the team that maybe people didn't really understand. Obviously, since you're the scout, they probably tell you more of like the general platform which they're going to try to build around, because obviously there's no point in scouting a De'Aaron King. Obviously there is, but there's no real point putting more effort into De'Aaron King, who is primarily a runner, if that's not the goal of your offense.
Correct. Yeah. I think it kind of showed with Baltimore has Lamar Jackson. These are the extremes, obviously. Baltimore has Lamar Jackson, their backup's Huntley, very similar player, kind of a run around, real athletic quarterback that can make things happen. Not the most natural or accurate passer, whereas our backups are Nick Mullins, for example, who's just more of that kind of pocket passer, game manager, make quick decisions, get the ball out quick. But if things break down, he's going to struggle more than Huntley with Baltimore.
Yeah, no, definitely. So in regards to kind of like plays breaking down and people not being able to handle it, a lot of that kind of like people are starting to try to point at age and maturity as well with that, because obviously the more experience you have, probably the better poise you have as well, which is why certain prospects like Joe Burrow have great poise. And then there's also some crazy freaks of nature that end up like having poise at the age of 19. But how do you evaluate like the value of players in consideration to their age? Because we got guys coming in. You have Trevor Lawrence, who will be 21 in the year that he is playing his first snap, versus like guys like Rodarius Williams at Oklahoma State, who's going to be around 25. So where do you see, is there like a good amount of projection? And like, if you see a 25 versus a 21-year-old, do you value the 21-year-old thinking what he could be at 25, or is it like contract based that way?
Yeah. So there's definitely an extent to where if you have 2 similar level prospects, one's 21, one's 25, you're most likely going to go with the 21-year-old. You're going to think that he has more development, more upside, more of a ceiling, where the 25-year-old is going to be kind of maxed out. Likely, or closer to his ceiling. So, and then the other sense that you mentioned, the contract, a 25-year-old, it might be a lot less likely that you resign him to that second contract because of the age that he's going to be. He's already going to be close to that 30 mark, where the 21-year-old is still going to have a whole nother contract ahead of him. A lot of times, head coaches and front office guys don't necessarily think 4 or 5 years down the road, because you never know what's going to happen. You're not going to say, I'm going to pick this 21-year-old over the 25-year-old because I'm going to re-sign him to a second contract. Well, things happen in the NFL. You might not be there. So it is a type of balance. You want to make sure that 21-year-old can come in and contribute right away if you're picking them high enough, and that it's not going to be too much of a curve. One example that I vividly remember was Calvin Ridley. He was a lot older when he came out, but his game was really polished. You knew he was going to contribute right away, versus a guy like DJ Moore, who was younger, wasn't as polished, a little bit more raw, but some people might have thought he had a higher ceiling. And that year, Calvin Ridley was almost the same age. I think he was a year difference as some of the NFL free agent wide receivers like Allen Robinson. So it was just interesting seeing a guy that's just finished his 4th year in the NFL and a guy coming in, and I think they were only separated by like 1 year or something like that. So all those things actually do get discussed and talked about in our meetings. So
how big of an impact do you think the strategy of like win now versus rebuild mode has to deal with that valuation as well? Because obviously if you're about to win now, you might want a guy with a little more seasoning, a little more experience to help you win today versus tomorrow.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, depending on where your team is at, roster-wise and what your goals are, you might definitely put that older, more polished player ahead of the younger guy, because you might feel more comfortable that you know what you're getting, right away for that guy to contribute.
Yeah.
Another interesting aspect is just the evolution of sports science nowadays. And all the tools that we have for guys to take care of their body. It seems like we've been able to start, prologuing some of these careers and
Mm.
Outside of the obviously unfortunate injuries that you can't really predict, just the common wear and tear of the game seems to be a little less on our guys with all the tools that we have now and the development of sports science and rehab tools and everything like that.
Okay. Well, going off of that, obviously this off season's been a little bit interesting, right? Not this one, like COVID off season, the last one. And that kind of led to a lot of teams not being able to have full preparation. Obviously, we've deleted the preseason and stuff like that, which honestly is probably my favorite time of the year because I get to see all the rookies go and do their thing. But
yeah,
how great of an effect do you think that has on the injuries that the players have sustained this year? Like you see the Eagles completely ravaged by injuries. 49ers, like you guys have been, your best players usually are under a lot of duress, especially like Jimmy. And then obviously Nick Bosa was injured, he still is, and then George Kittle, all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. So I think to answer that, there are multiple layers. I do think that the lack of an off season or preseason does cause some more injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, all these guys are professional athletes. They all, for the most part, train the right way, show up in shape and everything, but there's just a difference between working out on your own and being in shape and then coming and being in football shape.
Yeah.
Your body is not calloused to, play a football game and do it repeatedly, day after day, week after week. So I think that does lead to more injuries.
Yeah.
Also, if those injuries happen in, say, training camp, if your fifth or sixth wide receiver they injure their hamstrings and they have to miss a couple of days of practice, that normally increases the reps for your other guys. So then they become more likely to get injured. It's kind of a snowball effect that can happen just with the increase of reps due to injuries anywhere on your depth chart.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. So what inside the facility was different because of COVID this year?
Oh, wow. Where to start? Oh, man, pretty much everything. So at the 49ers, we have our football facility and it's at our stadium, and also share some common spaces with just the business side of the 49ers team. Business side, people weren't in the building at all. So it was really just football. As far as football operations goes, there's 3 tiers of employees. Tier 1 was kind of the players, the coaches, and athletic trainers, people who were in direct contact with the players every single day, had to be. Tier 2 was kind of more the personnel people who could go in some of the same spaces as the players, but we didn't have no reason for us to have contact with the players every day. Okay. And then tier 3 was kind of the tier that wasn't allowed to have contact with the players.
Gotcha.
So that was different. I know in our department we had some tier 2 and tier 3 employees, so we weren't allowed to be in the same meeting rooms when that was allowed. So we had to do that Zoom, and eventually we went to Zoom anyways, just as far as precautions. We had to get tested every day. There was some bans on travel, where we could go. And then if we did travel somewhere, then we had to quarantine and for 5 to 7 days, kind of just depending. And before you could go back in the office, the travel party for the team was a lot less. I know on the pro side, it was a lot tougher getting players in for tryouts when we had those injuries. Normally you can fly a guy in right away. Well, we had to fly a guy in, and then we had to wait 5 days in order to even work him out.
Yeah.
So that in itself created issues. And then some of these players, they would be sitting in a hotel room for 5 days. So then when they finally did show up to the workout, they might've been a little underweight or not in as good of shape as they wanted to be.
Yeah.
Things like that. So it was kind of a whirlwind of a year, and things were really different. The NFL changed a bunch of roster rules and practice squad rules with the amount of players that we could have on the practice squad. We could flex practice squad players up on game day. So we had to, become familiar and experts on those new rules that will probably be only around for this year. And then we'll have to revert back to the old ways. So, it was was kind of a crazy year just in terms of COVID and some of the special things and obstacles that COVID brought with it.
Oh yeah, I think the best takeaway from this whole entire season is the fact that the NFL is flexible. They actually did. They made quick changes and they were able to do it in a very good, pretty good way in my eyes. You know, like they did a very good job, especially work with the NFLPA, because we see that a lot of certain things that require legislative type of stuff usually takes a while to implement and it's not usually implemented well. But we somehow got through an entire season, and fingers crossed we still get through all the playoffs, which seems like it should be. But
no, props to them. And you know, it seems like the NFL did do a great job.
Yeah.
Back in back in April, May, we were a little worried. We hadn't heard a lot from the NFL about their plan to return to play and stuff, but it came together quickly, and I agree. They did do a good job, and it got us through the season with kind of, you know, limited impact for the most part.
Oh yeah. So thinking about like the 49ers, obviously, I believe Robert Saleh was your defensive coordinator, correct?
Correct. Yes.
He decided to take his amazing talents elsewhere to the other side of the country, to New York. And in New York, there's a huge question about Sam Darnold. So this is kind of circling back to the idea of age and how much projection works into this. Sam Darnold, I believe, is 23 years old. Like, how does that project into the fact that he's seeing ghosts, he's had everything? Trust me, bring the dog more in. We want to see the dog. The dog is great.
Hey.
It's a cute dog.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think the age or lack of experience for Darnold will definitely play into Saleh's, you know, evaluation and what he wants to do moving forward. It's also really hard on young players to have so many scheme changes that he's gone through. This will be his, you know, third offensive system that he's had to learn in 4 years. So that's never good for a young quarterback. I guess the one kind of positive thing is, you know, maybe he hasn't developed too many, you know, bad habits because he's had to do so much. So now maybe you can go in there and really hone in on and focus on his strengths and his skills, and you know, really tell him, you know, what he needs to work on while you create a game plan and a team and a system around him that works to his strengths.
Yeah.
You know, he can focus on that kind of stuff. It definitely is going to be interesting for them, especially with where they're picking in the draft. It's a very valuable pick, whether you want to pick it, take a player there, or you want to trade back. You know, they are in an ideal position for a rebuilding team. You know, depending on how they view Sam and their plan for him. Yeah.
Obviously, there is another situation, very big in the news right now, going on in the south part of the country in Houston with the Houston Texans, where it kind of is the same head coach type of limbo situation, but they actually have a guy who they know is pretty much MVP caliber there. Yeah. What do you think of that about the whole situation? What do you think DeShaun Watson should do? Because I'm actually bringing on Jamie Roots in a couple of weeks onto the channel, because I don't know why, but he said yes. But
oh wow,
yeah. So obviously he's probably not gonna be able to say much, similar to you, G situation, stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on the whole DeShaun Watson situation, the whole Texans organization? Now, don't get yourself fired here, but we'll keep it PG. But obviously, I want your opinion on this.
Yeah. As far as DeShaun goes, I mean, he's a heck of a football player. You know, instantly makes any team better with his play. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a great leader, the type of franchise quarterback that you want as the face of your program. Yeah. When all this news started happening, you know, myself, I was surprised. You know, I was really surprised. Just kind of I don't know if this has really ever happened before to this degree. With you know, such a young dynamic star at the most important position in football. So I was really surprised. You know, hopefully that DeShaun and the Texans can work out what's best for each party and move forward. But I think DeShaun obviously can make the Texans better and help speed up that rebuild process with them. Deciding to kind of switch over the front office and the head coach and everything. whoever's the coach there, DeShaun's probably likely going to be better than if they had to replace him.
I would 100% agree to that. So kind of this is like a 2-question one. It's kind of dealing with DeShaun, but going off quickly what you just said, how valuable is a head coach to a team if they already have a great quarterback?
Oh, I think it's still extremely valuable. I mean, head coach is kind of the guy that can put the culture into place, the team's identity, and make sure that you can play to your team's strengths and DeShaun's strengths. If you put the right pieces around him, you're going to be competing for a Super Bowl every single year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the head coach, and along with the GM and the executives there, are vital to that and to the success of that franchise moving forward, and the sustained success that a quarterback like that should bring to a team, as long as those pieces and culture and identity are around him.
Okay. Well, this versus the second part of my question, this deals more with just DeShaun Watson and himself. There is another quarterback hailing from the same school named Trevor Lawrence, who people are saying is the best talent since Andrew Luck. Some people say Peyton Manning. Some people say John Elway. What do you think about, obviously, you haven't gotten probably too deep into the tape study yet, but from just a first look point of view, like me on Trey Lance, do you think that Trevor Lawrence will become a better quarterback than DeShaun Watson, who he had some red flags coming out, but obviously he was not the consensus number one, or else Mitch Trubisky would have not destroyed the Bears franchise?
So Trevor Lawrence, so I've started, kind of watched him early in the season. So it was mostly 2019 tape, and then there was 1 or 2 games from this season. As far as physical standpoint goes, he does have everything that you want physically. Mm-hmm. I do think he might be a little bit more raw than some in the media may lead you to believe. There's some things that he can clean up, as with all prospects, but to say that he's going to be better than DeShaun Watson it's really hard for me to say, because DeShaun is the top 5 quarterback. He's young. He's proven almost everybody in the NFL wrong, because he went 10 overall and Houston had to trade up to get him. So it's not like you said he was the consensus number 1 pick. He had question marks coming out. Physically, I would say Trevor's better. Just physical traits, and it's kind of where you really need to sit down with these prospects and really get, see what their mental makeup is, and their how they carry themselves, their leadership, all the intangible things. It's pretty easy to throw in the film and say that a player's good enough to be a starter in the NFL, or has the physical traits to be a top 5 player at his position. That's pretty easy, but the mental character, the mental makeup, and the work ethic, the strive for greatness, that's really what's going to separate those guys. And then also the situation for Trevor. It sounds like he's going to go to Jacksonville. They just hired Urban Meyer. Who's going to be his coordinators and everything like that. So there are things that go into that type of evaluation for a prospect, and allowing him to reach his ceiling, and things like that. Sometimes players just go to unfortunate situations, or the scheme doesn't translate to what they're best at, and it kind of holds them back. So but as far as just a physical trait prospect, Trevor's up there with everybody that I've been doing it since I've scouted. So
really? Okay, well, that kind of answered the second thing I was going to ask, is like, obviously, do you feel like he's consensus number 1?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I do think he's the best quarterback in this class, and has the highest ceiling as well.